This is my solution to modifying the 2019-2020 Hobie Outback for a higher seat position. I really love my new Outback, but after using my native Titan and a Jackson Coosa FD, which I had modified to use a Hobie Vantage ST seat, which was crazy high, I wasn't real comfortable in the real low seat. I also preferred my seat bottom to have more of a downward angle from the front to back. If I had the Hobie seat in the front high position and the rear in a lower position to get a slope, it just makes you feel like you're sitting that much lower. So is the seat fine like it is from the factory? Well, sure, but for me and my particular fishing area and style, raising it some is an improvement for me. If you're happy with the seat like it is and don't think it needs to go any higher, then there's no reason to be watching this. Yes, I consider just using a thick seat cushion, but why would I want to make anything easy when I can complicate it, right? Anyway, your mileage may vary. Seat height, comfort, and perceived stability is a subjective thing. These aluminum brackets hold the factory plastic brackets just under 3 inches higher. While this modification is perfect for me fishing the backwaters, marshes, and flats, it's likely not a good choice to use in rough water, and certainly not for taking off the beach into the surf or anything. This modification probably voids the warranty too, so anyone does so at their own risk. If you develop stress cracks or flip over and lose all your gear, don't hold me responsible. I'm just showing what I have done and not suggesting anyone else do this. It's a relatively simple mod if you do these sorts of projects. While I used a table and miter saw to make some of the cuts, it could be done safer and almost as easily with a vise and a hacksaw. Unfortunately, I haven't yet been able to complete the solution for the rear support. Until this stay-at-home virus mandate's lifted, I don't want to go out collecting parts and components at the hardware store. However, it is workable as is, and I was bored and thought I would go ahead now and throw together a crappy, unprofessional video. As it is, when the front's in the new lowest position, the flip-out rear seat on the seat back still align and work correctly with the factory base or shelf on the kayak. I really like the height, and the seat bottom is angled down more from front to back, which, in my opinion, is much more comfortable. When the seat front is on the new highest position, the rear flip-out feet no longer reach the base or shelf they're supposed to sit on. I find that if I lower the rear legs, they fit nicely in the bottom corners of the kayak. The seat bottom angle is comfortable there, but I worry about causing too much stress in those corners. I also want to fabricate a solution that allows me to more easily drop the lower position and raise it than having to pull those legs out and reinsert or take them in and out each time. Temporarily, I may just use a horizontal base across the rear and attach those to those two brass inserts you see in the bottom below the little support shelves. That would help distribute the weight. Once I can get to the hardware store again, I have some ideas for a base that easily flips out of the way for those rear flip-out feet to rest on instead of using the legs. And for those who might ask, yes, reaching and using the rudder controls still feels natural with no reach. So what did I do and what did I need for this modification? Basically, aside from some tools, it just required some 1/2 inch long, 1/4 inch 20 stainless cap bolts and acorn lock nuts, and a short section of aluminum channel. It has to be the architectural 6063 channel, which has the sharp inside corners. If it doesn't have those sharp corners, the black plastic Hobie brackets will not fit inside the aluminum fabricated brackets. 1/8 inch thick channel with a 2-inch base and 1-inch legs is what's used. If they made 2-inch channel with 1/2 inch legs, it would not require any cutting, but I don't believe that's available. The 2-inch channel is the right size so that the Hobie brackets fit snugly in between those side legs. The 1/8 inch thickness was about the same thickness as the two plastic shims that were on the kayak to space the Hobie brackets out slightly from the side, so that horizontal crossbar fits tight between them. Due to the wide tolerance of the molding process and differences in finished kayaks, some may not have the room or have needed those spacers to begin with. It's possible there isn't enough space on some Outbacks to allow for the Hobie black plastic brackets to be a 1/4 inch closer together and still have room for that horizontal crossbar to fit between them once the aluminum brackets are in place. The end pieces on the horizontal crossbar, which the seat rests on, is what requires the aluminum channel to need to be cut back. If it's not cut back, those end pieces that wrap around the front and rear of the plastic brackets won't have any clearance to the aluminum channel. It's those same end pieces, by the way, which come in contact with the brackets and cause that maddening creaking and squeaking you get while pedaling. I've heard a lot of people have that, and I certainly did. The easy fix to that was just a layer of duct tape on those bearing surfaces. The easiest way for me to do this was line up the Hobie brackets inside the aluminum channel and position them flush to the end of the channel. Then I drilled a single hole through each bracket through the aluminum. I used a 15/64 bit, which I chased later with a 1/4 inch bit. After the first hole is drilled for each, I use a couple 1/4 inch bolts to hold the brackets tight and in position so that I could drill a second hole through each bracket. That just makes it a lot easier to get the subsequent holes perfectly aligned and holds everything tight in place. Once that second hole is drilled through each bracket, the brackets are repositioned and bolted to the next hole. That allows for a third hole to be drilled so that each aluminum bracket has 3 equidistant holes. It also then indicates the other edge of where the aluminum bracket needs to be marked and cut flush with the position of the black Hobie bracket. The most difficult part is then cutting back a section of the 1-inch legs on each side of the aluminum channel. You basically need to make the clearance cuts halfway down the length of each side. I made the cuts so that each leg was cut back to a height of 5/8 of an inch on the outside and from one end back to the center of the middle hole. After the cuts, it's easy to clean up and just square it up with a file. Mounting and putting it all back together is the easy part. I found it easiest to bolt the black Hobie brackets through the top hole with the new 1/2 inch long 1/4 inch 20 stainless cap bolts and acorn nuts. Then position the crossbar between each and lower that whole assembly down in between the sides of the Outback. Once in position, the last 4 original bolts can be carefully screwed in. I found that the left bracket has one of those bolts which is captured by that internal metal component, so it has to be watched for clearance and being careful not to catch or scratch the side when you're lowering it into place. So that's it. I know I've seen a lot of posts and questions online about ways to raise the new Outback seat. This is what works for me, and I hope this was helpful. One thing I forgot to mention was that these new aluminum brackets basically raise the factory brackets just under 3 inches. So that's what you're dealing with height-wise. As far as stability, like I said, that's subjective, and it'll be different, have a different feel for each person, depending on size, weight, and what you're used to. As far as my comfort level, in the new low position, I don't really feel any difference in stability at all compared to the previous highest position, and everything just feels really good to me. The new high position is still very stable, but not something that I'd want to be out in rough water with or anything. But that's how I feel about it, and it'll, of course, vary for individual preference. Thank you.